Hello and welcome back to coverage here at U.S. Nationals. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Reed Duke, and we've got our only two undefeated players remaining in the feature match area here. James Tessitore is playing against Oliver Tamiko, and honestly, both of these players are in a good spot to make the top 8 here, Reed. We've got another round of booster draft after this, followed by just 2 rounds of standard. So we're actually quite a bit down the stretch in the tournament here, but it's not over. This is certainly a place where these players are going to look to stay focused here in the early part of day 2 and make that final run in. Tamiko is actually going to offer to let James upgrade his his lowly hatchling here and put it into a nice big fat 3/3 dinosaur with trample, and that's exactly what happens.
Well, and you would think if he was going to allow the 3/3 dinosaur to come into play, he would have a strong follow-up play like another ground creature or a removal spell. But potentially playing with fire here as he lets James Tessitore attack him back for 3 damage.
Wow, and he just took it. Yeah, I'm actually surprised to see that. You know, a lot of the lines of play around Raptor Hatchling are actually just ignoring it. You know, and what I mean is playing around the fact that it exists and not letting it become a thing. Ranging Raptors actually hits the graveyard here for James off of that Tishana's Wayfinder. Perhaps a signal that he'd like to find more lands. The Ranging Raptors looks pretty good on this board. But at any rate, let's see. Does Skullduggery get the job done here for Tomajko? Yeah, right?
Yep, it sure would.
Mm-hmm. And that's, of course, why it's so good. A 1/2 battling into a 3/3, and you can spend 1 mana and win that fight. Pretty good.
And James sees through it. He decides not to block.
Smart play from James there.
Keeping in mind, we watched Oliver draft, and he has 3 Skullduggeries in his deck, which you were a little concerned with him picking quite high.
Mm-hmm.
But looks like he's been able to put together a pretty sleek little black-white aggro package here.
He did end up playing the Conquistador there. Oh, look at this. James did want to hit a land, but he also had another copy of Ranging Raptors, which also helps explain why he put that one in the bin.
Yep, James, on the other hand, has a pretty nice-looking red-green dinosaurs deck. One thing cool about his draft, 4 copies of Pounce. He decided to play with 2 of them.
Okay. You know, we might see more of those come in once he sees what Oliver's up to here because, well, Oliver's deck is going to get overpowered here. You know, a red-green dinosaurs deck is really not the matchup that white-black wants, as even cards like Skullduggery can get outclassed in the mid to late part of the game by just sheer power and toughness from James. I mean, look at the board right now. Like, Oliver did nothing last turn.
I guess in addition to those 4 pounces.
Whoa. How about this?
Ooh, wow. This is a game changer.
This is playing with fire, though, for Tamiko. Remember, both players are going to lose a third of their life total here. And as it sits, James is a little bit ahead in the race.
Yep. Direfleet Ravager, reminiscent of one of my all-time favorite cards, Pox. Both players lose 1/3 of his or her life rounded up.
Now, didn't you play that in Legacy
Oh,
once?
most definitely. I try to play that deck just about every opportunity I get.
I remember this now. This is one of the first times I saw you on camera. I was like, who is this crazy guy? That's pretty sweet.
So in addition to those pounces, James also has 2 copies of Savage Stomp, the sort of better pounce for a dinosaurs deck. So it makes sense when you have access to 6 fight cards. You can't really just play them all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could.
He has one of the Savage Stomps in his hand, at least here. Though things get a little bit problematic when it comes to the Ravager.
Yeah, actually, Death Touch is a particularly valuable ability in Ixalan because there are so many fight cards and because these giant dinosaurs tend to dominate.
Ooh, look at this play though from James. He's going to play a Raptor Hatchling, and then he's going to fight the Conquistador right away. And remember, it's enraged. The Raptor Hatchling does not need to die to make a dinosaur. It just needs to take damage. And it did. So he gets a free dinosaur out of this. That's a huge value play, Reed.
Yeah, okay, so what James is going for here is he wants to make an attack that leaves Oliver dead next turn, and he also wants to produce 2 creatures capable of blocking the Direfleet Ravager. Keep in mind, Menace. And he was really careful to play around Skullduggery there because he saw through the play. Remember, he had chosen not to block earlier, clearly respecting the Skullduggery. And if he had left one of his creatures as a 1/1, that opens the door for some Skullduggery shenanigans to potentially let the Menace creature through. Of course, complicated by the fact that it is a Raptor hatchling, but...
Well, but that's a really smart play, right? Because Skullduggery is one of the better answers to a Raptor hatchling, as it doesn't actually take damage. And now he's got a 2/2 Raptor hatchling, which does not die to Skullduggery.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, in my head, I said Raptor hatchling, when it dies, you get a 3/3 dinosaur. But you're right, it is enraged, so Skullduggery just, basically erases that.
And this is actually going to make Oliver pump the brakes here. A prying blade here from him as well. He has gone very low to the ground with this build. But as a result, he has some relatively low impact plays. In fact, looking at the board, of the spells he's cast 5 spells this game. 4 of them are what I would consider pretty low impact. The Sky Blades, the Conquistador, and the Prying Blade are not the kind of hammer cards. They're more curve and kind of get them out of your hand and get them onto the battlefield type cards. And this is where James can really pull ahead.
The other really important thing about James's Savage Stomp play on the hatchling is he produced a 4th 2-power attacker, which he could have gone for a lethal attack there if he had just turned all his creatures sideways, but he decides to continue respecting the Skullduggery and not make an overly aggressive attack.
Really smart plays from James here. I'm impressed. You see a lot of times players will put a read on somebody and be like, okay, I think he has Skullduggery. And then later on they'll make an inconsistent play like, oh, I'm just going to go all in here and see if I win. And James not falling for that trap. Still, it makes me wonder what James needs to find here to get out of this. He only needs to get 2 extra points of damage in.
Also impressive on James' side of the battlefield is he was able to do all of this with only 3 lands. He just hit his 4th land a second ago, but strangely enough, both players still with spells in their hand pretty deep into this game here.
This is getting interesting now. Oliver equipped up the Prying Blade, got in for a couple of damage. James is now at 5. His follow-up play was Queen's Commission, and his board has gotten kind of hard to get through at this point.
Wow, Marshall James has an Unfriendly Fire in his hand, which will be lethal if he can find a 5th land, but he didn't do it this turn, and now can Oliver win the game, or can he gain enough life to put himself out of range?
I wonder, can you just attack with ranging raptors there? Oliver is compelled to block it. He cannot take 2 damage. He just immediately dies on the spot.
That's a very interesting question.
Just
a lot to think about on this board.
Right, just attack with it, say, do something. That's Mauvern Fane there from Oliver. But that would guarantee that James gets that land in most scenarios.
Wow, look at this, Marshall. This is 3 in the air.
Knocking James down to just 2. Oh, he is going to need to peel a land here.
No blocks.
Oh, 4. He doesn't have 2 Skullduggeries in hand, does he? Oh, he does! His whole hand was Skullduggeries. And James shows him that he had Unfriendly Fire, but it's not enough. Oliver Tamiko just steals one with 2 Skullduggeries there. Wow. Perfect amount of damage for Oliver.
Unbelievable.
Exactsies. Wow. Woo. That was a close one.
Yeah.
I mean, James could have just drawn a land at any point there and won on the spot.
Also makes me think, he had made that really heads-up play of making his Raptor hatchling a 2/2 play around Skullduggery. But what if he had chosen to fight with the ranging Raptors instead and triggered the Enrage? How does the game play out from there?
I think I would have just sent it in. I think I'd just say, here. Because he had plenty of blockers. He wasn't going to die on the crackback. And just say, next turn I'm killing you. And you got to do something about this. Even in your worst case, if it just gets blocked by a 1/3 flyer or whatever, you still get to get the land.
So here we have Gerry Thompson versus Evan Petre. So Oliver Tamiko and Evan Petre really good friends, both from my local area. I played the pre-release with these guys a couple weeks ago, and here they are, 8-0 and 7-1 at Nationals. That must be really exciting for that pair of friends.
What, did you give them a little pep talk or something?
No, these guys are self-made. They're younger guys, but really, really strong up-and-coming players. And yeah, I mean, they're just have a knack for learning the game and mastering these formats pretty quickly. I've been really impressed with both of them.
Yeah, these guys have had success on the SCG tour for sure. And they're looking to try to make a dent here at U.S. Nationals and doing a great job of it, too. Only one loss combined between the two.
Evan is a Grand Prix champion from 1 or 2 years ago. Is the green-white tokens deck that Steve Rubin had won Pro Tour with.
And it looks like he's up a game against Gerry here as well, as we just came in for the end of that game, with Evan attacking for lethal.
So Evan here is playing a Bant deck for pretty much full 3 colors using treasures to splash additional colors.
Okay.
But here we are back to James Tessitore and Oliver Tamiko. I was really liking James' deck from the look of that first game, even though he did wind up losing. But great removal spells in the form of Savage Stomp and Pounce, Unfriendly Fire as well. Really synergistic dinosaur deck, including double Raptor Hatchling, double Ranging Raptors, so high-quality uncommons there, and just good mix of aggression and defense, low curve, all the things that you really want in your Ixalan draft deck.
His deck looks really good, and this is actually a reasonable matchup for him as well. He does need to survive the early stuff from Tomajko, but it seems like the type of scenario where his fight cards are going to be good. They're going to be picking off actual cards quite often. And once James gets to the meat of his curve, his creatures are just going to be simply bigger, and he can just start attacking with them and forcing Oliver to chump block or put a bunch of tokens in front of a creature to try to trade, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be my prediction as well. Though we do know from having seen enough of these vampire decks that they have some advantages in the matchup as well. Oliver's 2 really powerful rares, Maverin Fane or Direfleet Ravager, both capable of stealing a game, and Lifelink in combination with pump spells also can give Oliver an advantage in a close race.
Yeah, Oliver actually had both of those rares in the first game, and he needed all of it, too. And he needed James actually to fall a little bit behind on mana as well. So things went pretty well for Oliver in that first game, all told. You know, I think that it's safe to say that James would be a favorite in the matchup in general. Though it looks like both players are taking a mulligan this time, and I would say that probably favors Oliver. I mean, he's got a really good curve on this deck. He's got some playable 1-drops. You know, he really knows how to affect the board in the early stages and keep the pressure on.
All things equal, both players mulliganing favors the player on the draw, and it also favors the player who has less need of his or her lands.
Right.
And Oliver only playing 16 lands, he can very much operate on just 2 lands if he has both his colors. James will be looking for a couple of lands and his Explore cards, 2 copies of Tishana's Wayfinder. That's just what you want to be casting if you've taken a mulligan to help yourself smooth the draw, recoup resources potentially.
I mentioned it at the onset of the match, but these are our last 2 undefeated players in the field. They have put themselves in a very good position to make a run for top 8 here, but they do have a little bit of work to do. There's this round to finish, and then another booster draft round, and then 2 more rounds of standard. So this is not a situation where they're a lock by any stretch, but you know, they've given themselves a really good chance here. Rigging Runner is going to kick things off for James. On turn 1, he's not going to bother trying to set up any kind of raid here, and he's going to have to hope that Rigging Runner just does a good job against, maybe some of the 1/1 vampires that he's going to be seeing at some point.
Ragan Runner, a bit of an off-theme card for a red-green dinosaurs deck, but you did mention it does a nice job holding off the 1/1 lifelink creatures, but
It's about the best you can hope for.
have to imagine it's going to be a liability against Skullduggery as well.
Oh, yeah, great point. Yeah, I mean, Rigging Runner's another one of those cards that I would classify as a low-impact card. Oh, no. Oliver's a brute.
Yeah, now, this is just the best-case scenario for a Mind Rot. You are on the draw, meaning your opponent was on the play, your opponent took a mulligan, and your opponent's playing a red-green dinosaur deck that wants to hit land number 5/6. You're just guaranteed to take important resources out of their hand at that point.
Oliver also gets a treasure, and he's going to cash it in immediately for a Blightkeeper. Oh, that's about the perfect card here, though, for James. A Grazing Whiptail shores up the board in one fell swoop here. Also, in this scenario, it is immune to Skullduggery, which is something that, as we saw in the first game, it's actually hard to get out of that range of, I'm going to get into combat. Okay, I have Skullduggery. It's like the player's creature wins so often, but Grazing Whiptail actually does a great job here.
Yeah, it's perfect against these 3/1 power flyers. There's nothing Oliver can even really represent by attacking into the Whiptail.
There's land number 5 for James, something that he desperately needed in the first game but couldn't find. And, I keep classifying it this way, but we were talking about low-impact cards, and look at the battlefield here. Oliver Tamiko is all low-impact. James Tessitore has this Rigging Runner that's now just been completely bricked on every level. And then on James, though, he has now 2 higher impact cards, right? A 3/4 and a 4/4 are now on the battlefield.
Boy, and James sort of dodging a bullet here. In the one way he could lose this game is if he does attack that Grazing Whiptail and gets napped by Bright Reprisal on Oliver's side. But he chose to attack and trigger his raid on a turn that Oliver did not have the full 5 mana open.
Also, Oliver just actually gave up a Blightkeeper here rather than one of his lands to that Arsonist. I'm surprised to see that.
I think that's because of the Bright Reprisal in hand. Also, he
Still.
might figure if he goes down to 4 lands, he's never going to activate the ability of the Blightkeeper. It's tough to get through the Grazing Whiptail.
Still, he's going to draw a couple of lands in a few turns and be like, eh. All right, there's that Bright Reprisal, though, and he's going to get some very good value here.
Yeah,
James
this is
considering a pounce here.
Huge play for Oliver.
Looks like James wants to get a little bit of value of his own. He's going to pounce down one of the flyers, which does get him in for 4 damage here. But that's going to be tough to come back from. A 2-for-1 from Bright Reprisal. You feel like you got away with something there, don't you?
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to do with this card.
You mean cast it?
Yeah, well, cast it. I mean, specifically, he was able to nab his opponent's really potent defensive creature, which is something that's rare. Normally, the weakness of a card like this is it doesn't allow you to keep attacking if you're the aggressor. But in this case, James saw an opportunity where he thought maybe I can turn the tables on Oliver, but he was mistaken in this particular case. He attacked, got his creature eaten, and now he finds himself back on the defensive.
Well, this gets interesting now because he actually has an attack with the Arsonist. This is post-Direfleet Ravager. And I think James actually has that. No, I am mistaken. I thought he might have had a burn spell in hand again, but he doesn't.
He did discard Unfriendly Fire earlier in the game.
That's right. Wow, look at this. Very aggressive from James Tessitore, just jamming with the team. And Oliver actually going into the defensive stance here, looking to try to trade off the Ravager. And James just throws away the runner there to get in for 2. Ooh, Emissary of Sunrise. Heartless Pillage is the card revealed. Well, actually, that might actually be another Unfriendly Fire in hand for James. Does he have 2?
He sure does.
Yeah, you know what? I think I actually did see that after all.
Oliver left the...
He just went upstairs with it?
Yeah. He left the Heartless Pillage on the top of his library.
Well, Hatchling, land, because James knows he's going to have to discard that last hand. But I'm telling you, Unfriendly Fire upstairs is pretty aggressive when it only brings your opponent to 1. Because he is under assault here. Of course, Oliver has to tread lightly here, too. With only 2 blockers and 2 lethal threats on the other side, it's not going to take much. Any removal spell. Savage Stomp would do it.
Ooh, and Oliver did not cast Heartless Pillage.
No. Wait, he just drew Savage Stomp. He just kind of has to go for it here, right? Like, he's not really thrilled with this, but...
Oh, if he targets the hatchling, he's going to get blown out by Skullduggery.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he did. Oh, no. Oh, what a beating. Tamiko's going to pump something, shrink something, and that is a soul-crushing 2-for-1 in favor of Oliver Tamiko. Oh, my God, Reed, what a beating that was. 1 mana.
Yep.
2-for-1 and a half, because normally you get that 3/3 out of the hatchling at some point. Oh, man. Now he can just attack for lethal, force a chump block from James, and what can James even find at this point?
Just looking for a haste creature.
No, he found a removal spell, but it's too late. A little too aggressive there from James Tessitore and Oliver Tamiko. He is your undefeated player, the only one left in the field. 9-0.
Very impressive work from Oliver.
Oliver never actually ended up casting that other pillage, did he?
No, he didn't. That was the whole pattern there, leaving it on top, potentially trying to nab like a combat trick or something out of James's hand, but then he ended up not casting it. And
yeah, it gets so much worse, right? When your opponent knows it's coming, they just empty it out.
It does, yeah.
Is that Admiral Beckett Brass on the battlefield?
Yeah, Admiral Beckett Brass for Gerry Thompson.
Oh, look at this. So he's blue-black pirates with a little splashy splash.
Nary a mountain to be found there. He clearly cast Admiral Beckett Brass off some treasures.
Yeah, I see a Sailor of Means down on the bottom. That must have been it. There's old ABB. Admiral Beckett Brass with perhaps the most win more activated ability or triggered ability ever.
Well, we'll see if it can possibly come into play this game.
It's funny.
Gerry Thompson does have 5 pirates.
Right, but the problem is if he hits with a bunch of them, he just wins, right? Like, doesn't Evan's life total go to 0 at some point in that transaction? It feels like it would. Well, I've got a real standoff here, Reed. 4 creatures, and it looks like Evan has decided to leave up. Ooh, Costly Plunder, perhaps out of the sideboard for Thompson?
It is out of the sideboard. That's really good thinking for Gerry against a deck with multiple copies of Pious Interdiction.
Very smart sideboarding there for Thompson. I think that's one of the best possible uses for Costly Plunder, so he's really getting full value there from a card that's really on the fringes in this format, not a card you see very often. When you can turn a card that he probably picked up 12th in the pack into something that good, you know you're doing something right.
You don't think his plan was to start taking Evan's permanents one at a time with Admiral Beckett Brass and then sacrificing them to Costly Plunder?
Reed, I love how you think, man. That is some extreme value there. Oh, here we go. A hostage taker for Gerry now.
Gerry, lay off him.
No kidding. Take
Hostage
it easy on the
taker
kid.
and Admiral Beckett Brass. Oh, you know what? Looks like Admiral Beckett Brass is right off the sideboard for Gerry. He is only a blue-black pirate deck in his main deck.
Oh, that's interesting. He must have thought that the game was going to go a little bit longer. It looks like Evan is going to use Pounce here to get rid of old Admiral Beckett Brass. So no, we will not be seeing any permanent stolen. And Gerry's team just took a pretty big hit as far as size goes. And, of course, a really smart play from Evan there as well, because he actually gets his creature dead. And that means it's not taken hostage. It's a pretty big deal.
That's right. Keep in mind, because of the Admiral Beckett Brass, there was nothing large enough on the battlefield to kill the 3/4 hostage taker. So that was a good way to mitigate the damage of the hostage taker and, of course, get rid of a troublesome permanent.
A peculiar attack here from Thompson. Sending in with a Sailor of Means. And thanks to that treasure, he can send in the castaways. But he's sending them to their death. So what was behind this attack? He got in for a single point of damage, but it cost him a creature. Huh. Don't know what that was. Didn't work out particularly well there for Thompson. Unless getting Evan down to 11 is somehow important down the line.
Yeah, it looked like an attack designed to trigger raid, but that didn't prove to be the case.
I really did think we were going to see something like a looter or something like that post-combat, but we never did.
6, 7.
Whoa, what is this?
Oh, that's off the sideboard as well.
Is that Ungroth's Marauders?
Yeah, it is.
Whoa!
Gerry with the royal sampler of rare pirate cards here.
So now he's dealing double damage. That's how it works, right?
Yes, whenever a permanent under his control would assign damage, it assigns double that damage.
Yeah, and that damage is to a permanent or player. So it is going to be... This is actually a fantastic sideboard addition from Gerry, because look at the board. He's facing down 3 1/4s. Those are really hard to get through if you're, a small Pirates deck. But if you can do the double damage thing, then all of a sudden you're getting through quite cleanly. Gotta say, Gerry wouldn't mind having that castaways on the board here, but maybe he just figured that he was going to use the treasure and it wouldn't be able to attack anyway. So that was the best he was going to get out of it.
He got a treasure there from Direfleet Hoarder dying in combat. A couple of trades there. But yeah, you have to think with only 2 Sailor of Means left on Evan Petre's side of the board, things are looking good for Gerry Thompson.
Yeah, he plays a Ranging Raptors, which is a fine magic card here, but he really needed something big. As Gerry's moving closer and closer thanks to his sideboard tech. Man, he was really going to go off. He was going to have Admiral Beckett Brass plus Ungroth's Marauders. That's a lot of damage. And now Evan's in a very difficult spot here as he's trying to figure out how he should block.
He must block the Marauders. The other 2, he could take the damage, though, certainly playing with fire a bit there. Everything blocks the Marauders.
And so, oh, was that a Skullduggery?
Yep.
All right, Skullduggery actually makes it lethal then, that attack. So Gerry Thompson wins game number 2, and that was a fun one. Some really cool stuff there.
Yeah, just a complete revamping of his deck after sideboarding, bringing in Admiral Beckett Brass and Angrath's Marauders.
Evan looked to be in a pretty stable board state when we first popped in on this match, but it kind of slipped away from him turn after turn as Gerry got some value, played something big.
So one of the highlights of Evan's deck here is Tishana, Voice of Thunder, with, as we saw in that game, a ton of sort of disposable type bodies that are going to come into play, have an effect, and then kick around for a long time. Sailor of Means is a great example, but also 3 copies of Ixali's Diviner. So these defensive, high toughness creatures that help him get up to 7 mana, and then also hang around as additional bodies to draw cards with Tishana.
Taking the rare defensive stance here, but it looks like he's got ways to get his mana going and ways to come up the ground effectively, and that can be a successful strategy in the format, even if it isn't the first one you go to in most scenarios.
A pair of dual lands for Evan, Glacial Fortress and Sunpetal Grove. Usually nobody else at the table wants Glacial Fortress since blue-white is such an unusual color combination in Ixalan.
Yeah, it's really just not a supported color pair. There's no tribal synergies associated with it. And there's also, importantly, no gold cards associated with it. And that is a lot of the payoff cards end up being gold uncommons or rares. And there's none. So you just have to rely on raw card power level in that case, and that can be a tough thing to do. You're really kind of at the mercy of your draft. So Evan instead has gone with Bant colors here. But he's got a tall order ahead of him here. Gerry Thompson, of course, a PT champ. He wants to join you on the team, but Evan says, you know, I'd like that myself. I'm an up-and-comer here. I want to be on the World Magic Cup team with Reed Duke. All I have to do is beat Gerry Thompson and a host of other pros. I can do that.
Both would be okay with me, either an established pro player or, you know, a young up-and-comer who's going to bring good attitude and be eager to learn.
Are you anticipating taking a kind of a leadership style role as the captain, or?
Well, I'm certainly willing to. Depends on who my teammates wind up being. I mean, they could be players who are better than me, or they could be players who don't want my help. But if it does wind up being the case that my teammates want my help, I'll certainly be there.
I think they're going to want your help either way. Do you feel, you know, it's funny because a lot of times people still kind of feel like they're the new kid, you know, the newcomer. Do you still feel that way, or do you feel like you're an established veteran now?
I don't feel like the newcomer anymore.
You're the grizzled grizzled pro?
Well, somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. It's good. That's exactly where you are, so makes sense. So Vanquish the Weak took down that Wild Growth Walker, it looks like, but Evan has an Ixali's Diviner here and even hits a land off of it.
Yeah, Wild Growth Walker, one of the highlight cards of Evan's deck. He's packing certainly no less than 5 Explorer creatures, and with 2 coming down on turn 3 and turn 4 here, the Wild Growth Walker potentially could put him comfortably out of range of Gerry's more aggressive pirate deck.
Yeah, smart play there from Gerry.
Yeah, Vanquish the Weak taking care of it is certainly big.
Shipwreck Looter's going to get frisky here, but it's just going to get blocked by the 0-3. But as we see, there was more to the story. It was a raid trigger for Deadeye Tormentor, which nabs a forest out of Evan's hand. But those can matter. Like you said, Evan's playing a 7-drop in his deck. Ooh, there's Pirate's Prize. And it feels pretty good from Evan's perspective to be on a relatively stable board at a very high life total and resolving card draw spells like that.
Yeah, so far a bit of a battle over resources here with Gerry making Evan discard, Evan drawing 2 again, a couple of Explorer creatures. Opt.
Gerry's considering his choice. Looks like he's got a tough decision. Nope, he's going to send it to the bottom. Draws card from opt, untap, and draws card for the turn. He drew an land with the opt. Ooh, there's Admiral Beckett Brass, and that's going to clear the way for a real attack here.
Yeah, so 2 3-power creatures coming in.
Against the 0-3 Ixali's Diviner means that Evan just says, I'm going to take it on the chin here. Fall down to 17.
Well, he can't take it on the chin next turn because that's when the Admiral's ability starts coming into play.
Yeah, if Evan just did stone nothing, I guess Admiral Beckett Brass would pull out a sword and start attacking. What was that? Prosperous Pirates? Okay. Oh, but wait, there's more. Here's a pounce right away to take down Admiral Beckett Brass.
Yep, and remember that was the pounce that both players knew about from Ixali's Diviner. Or, I'm sorry, from Siren Lookout.
Right. All right, well, there's prizes all over the place here. Gerry's going to cast his own copy of Pirate's Prize this turn. Does he have a March of the Drowned in his deck? You know, this is starting to become a bit of an attrition fight here, Reed, and that's the kind of card I start to think about.
Actually looks to me like Gerry drafted 2 copies of March of the Drowned. One made it into his main deck, but he could have 0, could have 1, or could have 2.
You know, if he has that card in his deck, that is the type of card that can really power him through. You know, buying back Admiral Beckett Brass, if this game goes long, could be a big deal.
Yeah, now it's a tough decision if I was in Gerry's shoes because on the one hand, you are expecting the game to go long. That's why you've brought in Admiral Beckett Brass and Angmarath's Marauders. However, much of Evan's removal comes in the form of Pious Interdiction, so it's a bit of a shame to have your Raised Dead only be looking down and have your best creature locked under a pacifism.
Oh, that's a great point, Reed. And we know that Gerry has tried to mitigate that as well, but you're starting to get a lot of moving pieces to line up there to make all of that work, aren't you?
Yeah. So this is when, you know, a player like Gerry is going to have some sort of vision for the way the game is going to go, and that he's going to sideboard according to that vision. And, you know, it'd be great if we could get exactly in his head and find out what his plan is, but we're going to have to watch and see how things unfold.
You know, one thing that I could anticipate from Gerry potentially would be that he would take out the March of the Drowned and put in the Costly Plunder, thinking, I'd rather just have this, draw my cards anyway, and get around Pious Interdiction. But I could also see Gerry saying, you know what else is sweet? Having them play Interdiction, sack it to Costly Plunder, draw my cards, and then buy it back again with March of the Drowned, right? I mean, there is a value line there that gets pretty tempting. It's just a lot to ask for those games where you have March of the Drowned in your hand and your opponent's playing Pious Interdiction.
Oh, I see 7 mana. Thundering Spineback. Oh, and it's canceled.
Canceled by Gerry. He's like, no, sir.
That's what I'm talking about, Marshall, that vision for the way the game's going to go. And Gerry envisioned that he was going to have the opportunity to cancel one of Evan's, very impactful, potentially 7 mana spells.
Love seeing this stuff from Thompson. Cancel also out of the sideboard for him. Just completely recrafting the way his deck plays out to try to take advantage of this grindy, long game that Evan Petri's brought to the table here. In the meantime, you know, Evan has really secured the ground in a great way. Doesn't have much else going on. Did he not attack with the Siren Lookout there? What did I miss?
He did not. Potentially playing around a Windstrider, which Gerry does have one of.
Okay. Maybe Evan's just waiting to find a trick or a removal spell.
Marshall, you'll often see an advanced level player like Gerry Thompson or William Jensen, I think we saw it in his draft yesterday, spend a relatively high pick on a card like Cancel, even though it often doesn't make their main deck. Just because it's a high-value sideboard card for when you do run into a matchup like this where you know things are going to go long and you're going to have to line up the proper answers against the proper threats.
been a really fun match to watch.
Oh, I see now why Evan is so scared to attack with his 2-3 flyer. Gerry Thompson has both a Wind Strider and a... the name of the 3-3 rare Siren is escaping me.
Which one?
Dreamcaller Siren.
Oh, he has a Dreamcaller Siren as well?
Yeah, and I think I saw him pick one up off the top of his library a turn or two ago.
Yeah. Yeah, Siren Lookout lives in eternal fear of that card, because the truth is that Dreamcaller Siren doesn't block that many things relevantly, meaning at least a trade happens like against a Wind Strider or something like that. But Siren Lookout is the prime pickings. That's the one you get to just snipe. But Evan not willing to play into that. Gerry, though, is falling behind on board here as Evan is starting to get much more aggressive. And that is going to get the Dreamcaller Siren out of the hand here for Thompson.
Tap 2 non-land permanents, including your treasure.
That actually works, right? It is tap and sack a treasure, right?
That's right.
Interesting. Tiny little interaction there. But you got to feel like Evan has something now. He's waited all this time. No, he doesn't. He just says, sure. But this does let him get in for 3 damage.
Now, he does have sorcery speed removal in his hand, so we might see him use Pious Interdiction on the Dreamcaller Siren after combat.
Well, it can't block anything now, though, right? Yeah,
that's true.
It can't block any of Evan's cards, so I think he's just going to ignore it.
And Evan has a better answer in his hand in Bright Reprisal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you just get your value out of it, but does Evan care about that Siren at all?
Well, since Evan is the one attacking, he only cares about creatures that can block, but Bright Reprisal is never going to kill a creature that's threatening to block.
So he may as well just get a card out of it here.
Oh! Nice answer by Gerry Thompson, fizzling the spell. I'm the one that gets to draw a card, not you.
Very nice. He even gets to tap down treasure again. Oh, Evan's got the saddest treasure. It's all tapped. And that looked like a contract killing there from Thompson, who is getting dangerously close to running out of gas here. And his only blocker right now is just that Sailor of Means. The good news for him is that even if Evan were to attack with his 2 creatures that actually have power, he's only taking a damage. Can live with that. But Gerry Thompson very much hoping to peel something great off the top of his library here. So Gerry blocks the Blossom Dryad and takes 1 from the Rich Sailor there. Passes the turn back. What does Gerry find? He really does need to find some action here, Reed. Kitesail Freebooter.
Wow, and he's going to get a good one here from Evan's hand.
Pious Interdiction? And that's a Slice and Twain as the other card?
Evan was extremely patient with that Pious Interdiction. He's going to get punished for it now, as he could have used it on either the Dreamcaller Siren or the Sailor of Means last turn. Now it's going to get scooped up by this Kitesail Freebooter.
What are the good targets for Slice and Twain, I wonder? Wow. Gerry just took Slice and Twain. He did not take Pious Interdiction here.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of that.
I see a Pirate's Cutlass in Gerry's deck. I wouldn't even be shocked if that came out. And even if it stayed in, I don't think he cares about that so much. So it's probably not that. Maybe we're not missing something on board here, right? No. Kill a treasure? No.
Kitesail Freebooter can take any non-land permanent, is that right? Or any non-creature non-land card?
That's right. Non-creature, non-land is the stipulation there. Oh, now we see why here, Reed. Gerry had Costly Plunder in hand. So he actually wanted Evan to use Pious Interdiction to get value there. And he did. Both of those things happened. And now here's Angrath's Marauders clearing the way for an attack for 2 in the air. Oh, boy. That was a big swing for Gerry Thompson.
Yeah. Gerry was very patient with that costly plunder. He could have cashed in a treasure for 2 cards at any point earlier in the game.
Oh, but let's put a stop sign up. Man, this match just does not stop. That is a grazing whiptail now for Evan. And that freebooter no longer going to be able to attack. Unless Gerry finds a trick of some sort. This seems like a fine attack, though.
Yeah, I like that. The desperate castaways getting in, threatening to trade with even the biggest of Evan's creatures.
Yeah, Evan may just chump block with one of his diviners here. You got to wonder how much value he's getting out of these diviners anyway. Soaking up 4 damage might just be the best case for them at this point.
I agree. Evan just desperately waiting to draw Tishana Voice of Thunder.
Yeah, and that is one of the downsides to chump blocking is that if he does rip it, he's gonna be down a card.
You know, I think he'll be so happy if he finds that card anyway. He won't care if he's drawing 4 cards or 5.
You're probably right about that, Reed. Well, he found another Ixali's Diviner, and in the meantime, Gerry's just going to keep chipping away here, and he draws a land off the top, though, after Evan chump blocks again. Can Evan find that Tishana?
On Gerry's side of the battlefield, he can still draw Hostage Taker for a really nice effect.
Yeah. So Evan actually drew a pretty good one here for him. He drew a Pious Interdiction. And that can stem the bleeding. He can play it on the Desperate Castaways, and then Gerry won't be able to get those attacks in anymore.
It is an okay but not great answer to the Marauders.
Yeah, he ended up playing it on the Marauders, which still has a static effect on the battlefield. So not great, as Gerry wasn't really going to be attacking with it, but I think that Evan might just be looking down the line a little bit and saying, well, if he ever gets to attack with it, I'm in bad shape, like here. So now Evan looks smart, right? Because this would have been a big attack here with the Angrath's Marauders in there as well. Because that's Water Trap Weaver off the top of the library for Thompson, giving him the advantage back. And now Evan really does need to find one of his big impact spells soon. These Ixali's Diviners are not getting the job done. Emissary of Sunrise.
Evan,
also not quite good enough here.
Evan wants to keep exactly 1 land in his hand in case he does draw Tishana. You don't want her to be a 0/0 when she enters the battlefield, but you also want plenty of lands in play to be able to cast the cards that you draw into.
So the Emissary now can actually double block, though, right, on the Castaways. It's going to end up doing 4. But the Castaways will still take 3 damage here and die. Ooh. Gerry just reached down for his lands pretty quickly. No, he's just going to make the trade here. Yeah, that actually worked out okay for Evan. Oh, man. Stormfleet Spy, though. He's going to draw Gerry a card and put up another potent attacker here. Anything with 2 power or more, Gerry's happy to see at this point.
Man, Marshall, Gerry Thompson's going to win this match.
Oh, there's a hostage taker.
He's going to win with his sideboard deck of Angrath Marauders in his blue-black deck.
Quick library check there from Thompson reveals plenty. And look at this, Gerry Thompson seizing control of this board. This has been a fun one to watch. Maybe the last time for Evan to try to draw something huge here. He finds a Ranging Raptors. Does that get the job done? I guess he can survive here. But after this turn, Tishana is no longer going to be a potent out for him. Because look at this, Gerry Thompson just sending him in. And in fact, it is enough for lethal. As Evan says, you got me, and I had this in my deck. It was just a little bit too far down. What a sweet match, huh, Reed?
That was great. I really liked, in particular, seeing the way Gerry had sideboarded, planning for the longer games against Evan.
I love that, too. Okay, that is going to do it for our live coverage here in round number 9. Sorry, Evan, you're going to have to keep fighting here. You're not dead yet. We'll be back with more after these messages. Hey, welcome back here to the booth at U.S. Nationals. That's Reed Duke. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. Welcome. We're happy to have you along. We've got a little bit of time walk magic here, but we're kind of up against the clock, so we're going to be joining it already in progress. Let's head on down. This is game number 3 here, Reed Duke, of Drew Bates. He's playing against Christian Calcano.
Take a look at these two decks, Marshall. Drew Bates is very much more on the traditional good cards type of Magic deck. He has a pretty nice creature base for his white-green dinosaurs deck.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a short second there, Reed. Welcome back. As you can see, the video was lagging a little bit for us there, so Rashad's going to take a look at it and see if he can fix that. Go ahead, finish up, but why don't you tell us what we're looking at here?
So yeah, Drew just pretty normal, mana curve, creature deck, couple removal spells, high card quality. I like his deck.
Green-white?
Green-white. Calcano, much more unconventional. Following along the track that he had started at the World Championships with his red-black Auras deck, 4 Swashbucklings, where he went 3 out at the World Championships. Calcano has 3 Mark of the Vampires, and he's playing a lot of unconventional cards to set up and protect that. Main deck Duress.
Wow, okay.
Main deck Spell Pierce. Kitesail Freebooter, also on theme, although that's just a great card that I think anyone would play in their black deck. But yeah, 3 Mark of the Vampires, which is probably going to be his most likely way to win, is sticking a creature with Mark of the Vampire. Also Hostage Taker, that's definitely a card you want to use these tricky, cheap instant sorceries to protect. And beyond that, he just has a pretty nice aggressive blue-black Pirates deck. Siren Storm Tamer can protect his big threats. He can hook up a flying creature with a Pirate's Cutlass. So 2 very different approaches to the format, and we'll see in Game 3 who's able to come out on top.
Yeah, I like that Calc is built around this plan, right? He's not just showing up and just jamming these things and just hoping. We're going to be right back. Okay, we're going to have to take just a short break here to get that thing fixed.